Hey, it's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man here, and I'm swinging by the Geekcast Radio Network.
You've just jumped inside the pull bag. Join TFG1 Mike and the rest of the comic reading crew here at the GCRN as they make their great escape into comics. From DC, Marvel, IDW, Boom Studios, Zenoscope, and more, we have everything you want to read right here. Transformers comics? Yeah, we cover that. He-Man? Yeah, sure. DC superheroes like Batman, Batgirl, Nightwing, and Batman Beyond? Yep, we have those too. How about TMNT from IDW and I Hate Fairyland from Image Comics? Yeah, we have all that here. Plus, so much more. It's all inside the pull bag here on the Geekcast Radio Network. So without any further ado, it's time to talk about the comics we are reading right now here inside the pull bag.
Enjoy your fame while it lasts.
Hello and welcome to The Pull Bag. This is episode 336. I'm, of course, TFG1 Mike, and joining me is Ryan, the Uneven Flow Markley. Hello, sir.
Hello. We are Ryan. We are Venom. We are... Get it? I don't know, anyway.
That failed miserably.
Well, I was going to do a voice or something, but my voice is pretty monotone anyway, so there's just not a whole lot I can do with it. Some people really hate my voice the first time they hear it.
Hey, that was a long time ago. Shut up. You know better than
never
that.
Forget.
Hey, I compared you to the Charlie Brown adults. That's fairly good. Good. No, that's Penguin. You leave Burgess Meredith out of this.
Whatever. Anyway,
this is Marvel. This isn't DC. Yes, folks. Marvel coverage has come back to the pull bag. We are tackling two trades tonight: VENOMVERSE, and then a year later they did VENOMIZED. Mainly why I wanted to do this is because you may or may not have seen them. Funko has done Venomized pops lately. Last year they were doing them, kind of a thing, and so Venomized Captain America, Venomized Iron Man, that kind of thing, all the classic Marvel characters. And I'm like, ooh, there must be a reason why Funko is doing this, or Marvel is allowing them to do this. And I'm like, hey, there's a thing called VENOMVERSE out there. That sounds kind of cool. Plus, at the time, the new movie was just coming out. I have not seen the new Venom movie. I will eventually.
Not bad, not great. I don't know. It wasn't perfect, but it was about as good. Yeah, anyway. Get into that another time, but...
At least it wasn't. At least it wasn't Eric Foreman.
See, I didn't think he was the problem with that, though. I mean, that movie was awful, no matter what, and they didn't even. Venom had no characterization, and in this one, there's a lot more to. I mean, Tom Hardy acts his heart out in this one. And again, the material it's not bad this time around. It's also not good, though. It's somewhere in the middle. But Hardy absolutely just tries to knock everything he can out of the park. And again, no offense to... Oh, God, I can't remember his name.
Topher Grace.
Thank you. No offense to Topher Grace, but Tom Hardy's a better actor than he is.
Well, yeah, I mean, he played Eric Foreman on that 70s show. Come on,
well, that doesn't make him a bad actor. I mean, if you told me the dad from Malcolm in the Middle would be one of the best actors of a generation, I would have said you were crazy. Or sorry, if the voice of one of the monsters from Power Rangers would be one of the best. I knew that before you posted it, by the way. Also,
I'm sure you did, yeah.
They referenced it later on with a name of a monster, too. But anyway.
Mm-hmm. So, VENOMVERSE is 5 issues. I'm looking at the trade. I believe Ryan's looking at the trade. Written by Colin Bunn. Art by Ivan Coelho. I'm probably butchering that name. Sorry about that. Matt Yackey is the color artist on here. VC's Joe Caramanga is the letterer on number 1, 2, 4, and 5, and then Joe Sabino is the letterer on number 3. Cover art is done by Nick Bradshaw and Edgar Delgado.
I am not looking at the trade. I actually got this in issues. Just decided to give it a shot. I should mention, too, that I gave it a shot because I started picking up... I picked up the one-shot for Edge of Venomverse. Venomverse War Stories, which was a one-shot with short stories of how some of these characters got the symbiote. Now, having said that, some of these characters then do not appear in in either of these series, so it's just sort of like a one-off story for each of them. Then they did Edge of the Venomverse as a series of 5, which you do not have. I have read. Each issue is a setup of one of the different characters getting a symbiote. And again, not all of them appear in either of these series.
Right.
So they're not super important to the story. They're fun little one-shots. And we're talking about this before this started. So first of all, it's hard to get enough mileage out of a pretty simple idea. In this case, it's seeing our Marvel characters with Venom symbiotes and then poison symbiotes. And beyond that, I mean, that's a really simple idea. And I think it works better in the one-shot stories. Should also be noted that they were done by, at the time... he's still pretty new to things, but anyway, they were done by Matthew Rosenberg. Regular sort of Marvel readers probably recognize him most as the current writer on The Punisher. And he's very good. He had done sort of sporadic work before joining up with Marvel, and he's strong, and he's a good writer. So, yeah, it makes the one-shots. The one-shots are good. Like I say, they don't necessarily add anything to the story. They're just kind of fun things to read.
Yeah, and if I had known about it beforehand, it would have been in this. That's the only reason why I have not read about it, is because I found out about it halfway reading through Venomverse.
It's funny, you usually go nuts with trying to check all of this stuff and that kind of thing. It's just kind of amusing that for once you finally missed it, but...
we can't all be, Transformers comics chroniclers like Chris McFeely, so... Oh,
or me.
Yes,
but yeah, Rosenberg's good, and this is more kind of fun stuff from him. I don't know. His Punisher stuff is probably the best part of his work so far, but... He hasn't been at this for too long, so it's exciting to see him build up. And
I believe this is the first thing I've read from Cullen Bunn. I've heard his name before and everything else, but I haven't been into Marvel lately. In the last, almost since about year 1 of the pull bag, I haven't really been deep into the Marvel stuff. I'm trying to get back into that. We will be covering Edge and Spider-Verse itself later this year. But Venomverse, I dig it. I think it's cool. I think it's a fun idea.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I'm not trying to insult it when I say that it's a pretty simple idea. Most things are a fairly simple idea. But anyway, yeah, Cullen Bunn, by the way, he's written a lot of stuff, and he's worked for both companies. So there's a decent chance you've read something by him, but it's...
Maybe, but I honestly don't remember. I've read so many comics since 2013 when the podcast started, so normally when I find something that I like from a writer, I will not necessarily attach myself to them, but I will, I would have remembered that I would have read something by said person. How do we want to synopsize up Venomverse here?
I feel like I did. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, where to start? Fine, start at the beginning. Venom possibly from the 616 universe. It's never made clear. I don't think it's a huge deal, by the way. I just pretty much assumed or said, like, all right, it's just an alternate, it's an alternate universe.
Yeah.
Basically. But yeah, Venom gets brought in, and he gets brought to a place where it's a group of the other characters with the symbiotes. So including, you got Deadpool, Rocket Raccoon, Cap, et cetera, et cetera. And they're fighting a war against, they're called the Poisons, although we don't necessarily find that out at first. Mm-hmm. But they're called the Poisons, and they convert people with the symbiotes attached to them, and they join up with, it's called the Hive. They're basically like the Borg kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They're a Gestalt. They share each other's memories, thoughts, etc., etc. And we pick it up with, they've brought Venom in to kind of be their champion.
Eddie Brock, champion of the symbiotes.
Yeah, okay, although we end up quickly bringing in somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Carnage, gets brought in.
Because you can't have, an Eddie Brock Venom story without a Cletus Cassidy Carnage part in it somewhere.
It's a fun idea, because I have a hard time remembering. Carnage is he's not around an awful lot. No. He gets his own mini-series once in a while, and he makes sort of guest appearances. This is a lot more focused on him and Eddie. And now, having said that, the series, it's more fun. It's not like a deep character examination of each of them.
Yeah,
Carnage is just there to kill things, basically. And
pretty much, yeah.
It turns out, because he's nuts, and because the symbiote attached to him is different, he can fight the Poisons way better than any of the others can. And it's just sort of a last stand book.
Yeah. And it's a fun last stand. It's one of those things where, you in the very beginning of the trade, it basically gives you Eddie Brock's background, discredited by Spider-Man or Peter Parker, whatever. The standard Eddie Brock beginning of a story of how he got the Venom symbiote, and then it goes on from there. And it's one of those things where it's so fun because it's one of the main Spider-Man villains that has to save the world and has to save all the people that the symbiotes infected, or the Poisons infected, I should say. And let's not beat around the bush about what the Poisons do. They don't just assimilate the humans. The human host, they basically devour them. They basically cannibalize them.
Well, we don't see that for sure until later on, but yes.
We don't see it, but it's pretty much said.
Yeah, well, it's made clear later on, especially when Anti-Venom shows up in Venomized. Yep. Which we'll get to momentarily. But yeah, this is part one. The Venomverse stuff, it's just fun. Not every comic book needs to be Watchmen or Monstrous or Saga or something. You can just tell a fun, kind of disposable, action-heavy story. And really, that's what this is. It's just a fun, comic book story, and an excuse to have and see all these different heroes in different forms than we've seen before.
Right. And I think it's cool because it highlights the characters in ways that we haven't seen them before. In issue 4 here, I'm all the way up to issue 4 of the trade here. Where it's Black Panther, Venomized Black Panther, and somebody else. She asks him, "What's the last thing you remember?" "I was taking part in a global peace summit. I was planning to present a new accord my people had been developing." So it gives this really cool look at these characters as they're affected by the symbiotes, and I think that was super cool. And I love that they used MJ. I thought that was the best, one of the best things that they did in this series.
And you're right, you get a little snippet of everybody. There's a bit of each character in each issue, be it Cap, Rocket, Groot, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Although Groot's more on the poison side, because I can't remember if we see a non-poisoned Groot in this. But in any case.
The only thing I remember from Groot is when he shows up in Venomized, and
I was Groot.
The saddest line ever. I was Groot. I'm like, no, don't, no.
I mean, original Groot died in the MCU, so it's not that sad. Well, he did in Guardians of the Galaxy. Anyway.
Yeah, true.
And then Groot 2 gets disappeared by Thanos, who, speaking of which, is at the end of Venomverse is revealed that Thanos and the Order and Doom and the like are kind of our big bads. They're the ones organizing things. They have people behind them that we see in Venomized.
Yep. I love all these characters in this. I love the way Cullen has written Venomverse. I love seeing all the different versions of him, whether it's, it's symbiotes taking over characters like we said, but seeing how Cap is still kind of Cap even though he's Venomized, and seeing how, Anti-Venom is the way he is. I just think that is super cool. The only one I'm missing from this is, and maybe he was on the poison side, I don't remember off the top of my head, Venomized Iron Man.
Yeah, so he appears briefly in Venomized.
Okay.
But he pretty quickly gets poisoned as well, and even then, he doesn't get to say anything or do anything. Now, having said that, I'm just going to jump ahead then.
Yeah.
You mentioned there are pieces of a lot of the characters we know, or we get brief kind of snippets of them. In Venomized, the story sees the poisons come to Earth to try to take over everybody there, and it's more like our quote-unquote, the Marvel 616 Earth.
Yeah.
And we see them fight there. What I really enjoyed was seeing them get to play with the newer heroes. And when I say that, I mean Thor as Jane Foster. And seeing the Miss Marvel Kamala Khan. Seeing Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, who actually get a fairly largish role. All of these characters that haven't necessarily appeared in a lot of crossovers because they're not big name characters. They appeared at a time when Marvel was trying to get away from crossovers, thank God. And then they started crossovers anyway, whatever. But I don't know, I enjoyed that. I thought it was neat to see them. And we get Tessa Bloodstone shows up, which I can't remember the last time I saw her. I want to say in not Matt Fraction, the other one, Rick Remender's Punisher run, when they did the Monster Island stuff in that. Right. I'm old and I remember way too much about comics. This is not good.
It's okay.
Can't remember anything to do with my job or anything like that, but
Oh, stop. What I love about, and I'll continue on with Venomize in a minute here. What I love
go ahead, sorry.
about that's all right. What I loved about the trade for Venomverse is we have all the covers at the back of the book, and they show the number 1 to 5 connecting variants by Clayton Crane. You'll see it in the post, folks. It's a super fun image of all of the Venomverse characters, all of the main covers for all 5 issues, just connected to one thing. You know how that happens with the Transformers covers and things like that. When back in Rid and More Than Meets the Eye did that kind of a thing. I love when they do that. I think that's super cool, and I love when they actually put it in the trade so we can actually see it instead of having to hunt it down online somewhere.
Yeah, I don't actually. I think I mentioned this already. I don't have the trade of. Yeah, I have it for Venomized, but not Venomverse. And
Venomized has the same thing. It's a blue cover at the back there with the connecting covers. So think of that, except it's in Venomverse. It's a red background. Yeah, Venomized was slightly. I felt when I first started reading it, I felt like I missed something.
Yeah, so about that. They did a series. It's Venom and the X-Men in between.
Of course.
Yeah, so about that. So anyway, it's Venom and the X-Men, Poison X.
Yep.
And that's where the characters we see, and that's where Jean got absorbed between this. It's it's mostly the same team. It's still solid. It shows this kind of birth of the poisons and that kind of thing. It's not as much fun. Or at least I didn't find. Part of it, I think, is because it's got a much smaller, more focused cast, which is normally a good thing. But, I don't know, this was kind of fun. And it should be noted that this trade, it's difficult to pick them up on issues because it's a collection of 2 issues of X-Men Blue, an annual, and then 2 issues of Venom. As in the actual series. Great. So it is available in a trade. Yeah. I do not know that if you want it all, it can be worth getting, but I don't know if I recommend it as...
Well, what I have here in the trade that I got on Comixology was it's the 1 to 5 issues.
Yes.
So that's what's in the trade that I have.
No, I know. This is a separate trade. So there's...
Oh...
So, all in all, there's 4 trades to the Venomverse. There's Edge, which is a disparate series of one-shots. There's Venomverse, which is the first portion. There's Venom and the X-Men, Poison X, which is confusing and a terrible title, by the way, which is the start of Venomized, and then Venomized is the finale. But Poison X contains only Marvel Girl, Cyclops, Iceman, Beast, and Angel. Oh, and Venom, obviously. And this is where Jean gets absorbed, and that's pretty much the bulk of what happens. That's where we see more of Doom, Thanos, and concurrently, and also Death. You're not missing much.
No, apparently not. Venomized, creative on this, obviously Cullen Bunn on writing, Ivan Coelho on being the artist, Kevin Labranda as the penciler, Scott Hanna and Livesey are the inkers, Matt Yackey is the color artist, and VC's Joe Caramanga is the letterer on Venomized for the series. Yeah, like I said, even though we already talked about all this, I was super confused at the beginning of this. And then once, I think, Spider-Man showed up, once all that was happening, I was like, oh, cool. We get an easier way of Peter becoming the
yeah, I like that. It makes sense that he would be able to resist/use it most efficiently out of everybody else, and he immediately knew how to deal with it. He tries to take it off by going to a bell.
Yep.
Classic Spider-Man method, apparently. And anyway, he is unable to, and that's when he figures out, oh, something's up with them.
Yeah, the Poisons have really upped their game in this series at the conclusion of the Venomverse kind of thing here. They've changed stuff, they've done stuff, they've whatever.
Yeah, the symbiotes are just a method to make them easier to be eaten, whatever you want to call it. Eaten, merged with, et cetera, at this point. And yeah, it's interesting that Nova is the one that figures it out the most rapidly of everybody. He's the one that tells Cap.
Yeah, and during this, the poisons are trying to get Cletus to bond to a Venom symbiote instead of the Carnage, because they see him as a, what do they call him? Anomaly.
Anomaly, that's it, yeah. Because he's able to resist the poisons, and they try to, throw one of their Venom symbiotes onto him, which they believe, in theory, will make it easy for him to be absorbed by them. It doesn't necessarily work that way, although having said that, because he's nuts, he basically does their work anyway, because he just wants to kill Spider-Man and Venom.
That's true.
So, yeah, that was... I don't know, that bit was... So, Carnage isn't used nearly as well, I thought, in Venomized, but I thought that was fine, just because we have a whole bunch of new characters to play with. Like I said before, I enjoyed seeing Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, even if it's... they were fairly central to it, but... Then there's Kid Kaiju, who I am not deeply familiar with. I read some of...
I assume he's a Godzilla fan. I don't, I have no clue.
So he controls a lot of the kaiju and the monsters from Monster Island in the Marvel Universe. There's an island of monsters in the in the Marvel Universe.
In the Monster Universe.
Well, same thing, but anyway, they have a whole ton of. They have a whole ton of folks of monsters that are on there, and he's able to call on them, and that's what happens in a bunch of this series. That was also fun, by the way, seeing a whole bunch of like extremely large monsters just stepping on and pounding Thanos.
Yeah, anytime anybody can pound Thanos, that's always a good thing.
To be fair, anytime he doesn't have the gauntlet, although he finds way to lose as well. But anyway, Thanos is, without the gauntlet, tends to get beat up a lot.
Mm-hmm. He's kind of like Superman in season 1 of Justice League. He gets beat up a lot.
We've talked about that. That's how you show somebody serious about it. You beat up Superman.
That's right.
Well, now you can read comics about that, since DC's jumped on board with Comixology's Unlimited plan. So there you go.
Yep. Absolutely. I do, just like in Venomverse, I love all of the Venomized characters. All the different... I'm glad that Cap was not Venomized in this.
Yeah, they left him alone after we saw him as a Venom in the first part in Venomverse.
I love Venomized Wolverine. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, and X-23 was a big... She also had a one-shot, might I add, in the Edge of... But we saw X-23 as well in that one. We actually get to see a lot of Jimmy in this one. Jimmy is Ultimate Wolverine's son from the Ultimate Universe, who came over when they joined... Oh, God, I'm getting a headache again. He was one of the very few survivors of the Ultimate Universe going down.
Yeah, very cool, yeah. That's super awesome. And I just... As I'm kind of flipping through the pages of the final issue here, I'm like, oh man, I can hear, I forget off the top of my head who the name of the voice actor is, but I can hear the 92 X-Men cartoon Scott Cyclops, Jean! I can hear it in my head, and it's driving me crazy. Because the whole point of, as this concludes, is they try to figure out what's going on with Jean. Is she a poison? Is she really herself? Or whatever?
Do we want to just spoil the end? Or
Sure, why not? It's been out for a year.
Oh, I mean, it ends with, Jean's able to break free and then get rid of an awful lot of the poisons. But we also end with... Some of them are still running around, so I'm wondering if they'll... I'm sure inevitably, if the sales were high enough, they're going to pick up on this. And
yeah. I mean, hopefully the sales were good enough, and There are times where comic companies will do stuff even if the sales weren't that great.
True.
But sometimes, not often. But, I mean, I enjoyed these two trades. I thought they were super fun. It was something super different. It wasn't... My biggest stigma with Marvel and DC is that... And I know I don't have to do this because there's New 52, there's Rebirth, there's this, there's that, and then there's always, the previous 80-plus years of continuity. So, what I'm loving about catching some of these newer series kind of things is like, hey... I can read this without having to read the last 70 years worth of stuff.
It's fun to just have kind of one-shots and to do off-kilter stuff or just throw ideas at the wall. Like, hey, what if this person had a Venom outfit or whatever? Something wrong with that. Like I said before, not everything has to be, Watchmen or Saga, nor does everything have to be in continuity. We don't always have to see the Marvel Universe 616. We don't always have to see DC Universe. God, what universe are they in? Whatever.
Rebirth now.
No, but I mean, whatever. Yeah.
Oh, the Earth 2, Earth 1, Earth 38,
I can't remember
or whatever
which number
it is.
we are anymore.
I thought it was Earth 1, but I could be wrong. I'm most likely wrong.
Who knows? But yeah, there's nothing wrong with this stuff. It's, like I said before, it's disposable entertainment. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's good to have it once in a while. You need a palate cleanser between all of this stuff. It's one of the reasons, too. I also like that it gives writers the chance to kind of stretch their legs. Not everybody gets to be Brian Vaughan, who takes a year off from stuff and just can either take the year off or he can choose to write other stuff or whatever. Not everybody has that flexibility or that opportunity. So for some people, it's fun to just basically write. It's in a lot of ways, it's just like fan fiction. You get to just, play around in a universe. There's nothing wrong with that. So
absolutely. Nothing wrong with it at all.
So speaking of which, actually, we'll finish this off first.
Venomverse, I'd probably rate on 0 to 5. I'd probably give it a 4. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought the story was interesting. I thought it was great that they put the main kind of villain, like Doctor Doom, but there's people behind him. Same thing with Thanos. Like this whole poisons thing, that was interesting. Venomized, I'd probably give a 3.5.
Yeah, I'd probably sit both of them around 3.5 to 4 myself. So
yeah, the only reason why I'm giving Venomized a 3.5 is because, like we already discussed, I didn't realize there was something in between Venomverse and Venomized with the whole X-Men thing. I'm like, wait, what the hell?
Yeah,
kind of.
No, there was. It was just.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not sure if it's meant to be in continuity, but they took place in issues of other series. So I didn't have those originally. And so unlike Venomverse, I didn't even know it was happening, don't have the issues, and that's kind of annoying, but whatever.
Yeah.
This time, Venom will win!
So the other stuff I wanted to get to, just a comics discussion in general. The 2018 numbers came out for comics.
Okay.
As in the top 500 graphic novels, that kind of thing.
Right.
The death of comics has, once again, been greatly overreported. So individual issues, still not doing great. And they continue dropping. The money's in trades now. And surprise, surprise, the best-selling trade of 2018 was Infinity Gauntlet. Surprising absolutely nobody at all. Not only that, but it was the best-selling trade by like a country mile. But what I found interesting was the absolute domination of Image Comics in trades.
Oh,
holy cow.
Like, I haven't even seen the numbers of what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about, but I haven't seen them. But I know Image Comics would have been...
Yeah, so Infinity Gauntlet was the highest-selling trade of 2018. It's followed by Saga, Volume 9, Saga, Volume 1, Saga, Volume 8. Then we get our first DC entry, and that's the 80 Years of Superman hardcover. Haven't got around to reading that yet. Came out pretty late. Anyway. And then we get back to Image. Walking Dead, Volume 29. Paper Girls, Volume 1. So you can easily create a niche. Paper Girls appears again at 12 as well. And then we also have Monstrous in there at 10. Those are both, I mentioned them because they're all Image properties. And you can easily carve out a niche, and it's neat to me that the market's changed, and the comic sales, we're never going to get back to the 90s. It's like another thing we do a show on. We talk about wrestling. Wrestling's never going to hit the heights it did in the 90s. Comics are never going to hit the mainstream of the 90s. The way people read them have changed. Or has changed, sorry. But the industry itself is still okay. It's just, it's got to change. It kind of sucks, though, that the trades are just completely outstripping the issues. I'm worried that we'll get to a point where it's just going to be trades, which is going to completely change how comics are written in some cases.
Yep.
There are some people that write for trade. You can tell, and we've talked about them on this show. There's some people that are really good at writing individual issues. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose the opportunity for different writers to be able to do different things.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just something interesting I was thinking about.
Yeah, well, you're the perfect guy to talk about this with because you buy
too much.
a lot of trade paperbacks. And you're actually buying the physical copies. I, on the other hand, will buy trades digitally.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is where the industry has really changed. Because, like, when I first started this podcast and when I first started getting stuff on Comixology.com, I was subscribing to series and waiting every 30 days, every month, whatever, for the next new issue. And I'm like, not only can I not afford this anymore, I need to figure out a way to be able to wait for the trade for a few months or whatever, and then just review the whole thing all at once instead of doing single issues per podcast kind of a thing.
And so not by my choice, I now get the trades and stuff at cost. So it costs me roughly the same whether I get the physical or the digital. So I choose to get the physical because I still kind of prefer that. But it's inevitable at some point I may not be able to.
Yeah.
It feels like that's the way things are heading, which again, like, stinks. But
yeah. Well, like I said earlier, I said this off air, and I said this earlier when we were talking about Edge of Venomverse, Spider-Verse, all that stuff. The Spider-Verse Omnibus or whatever on Comixology was $30.
Yeah.
Over the holiday season, I jumped on it because they had it on sale for like $5-10. I'm like, I kept seeing it on sale, and I'm like, I gotta pull a trigger on this now because if I don't, I'm gonna end up paying $30 for it. And while it is worth that,
But even without that, you're getting towards the other problem, which is that $30 that it is normally, that's 6 issues of a comic now here in Canada. It's $5.
Yeah.
For a Marvel comic, which is not good. And I love comics, and I'm probably never going to give them up, but the rising prices are making it really hard to justify. And I know they raise the prices because they're selling fewer physical units. I really wish we had a better idea of what the digital sales are.
Yeah.
I also think we're in this weird place now, too, where pretty much no matter what happens, it seems like Marvel's probably not going to go under because in a lot of ways the comic stuff is just meant to feed the films.
Yeah.
At this point, it's no coincidence that Infinity Gauntlet was the highest selling trade. We all know why.
Because of Infinity War.
Yeah. So they kind of feed that now. DC has not had the same luck, we'll say. I mean, just to be blunt, they've put together 2 decent films at how many tries? So that's another reason. And then you've got Image Comics. Like, I'm not joking when I say if you look at the top 30 for 2018, they absolutely dominate the list. Every volume of Saga is there. That's 9 right there. Every volume of Paper Girls is on the list. That's 5 more. Then you got
You had mentioned Paper Girls. I think you had mentioned Paper Girls before. Is that... I haven't looked it up, and I'll look it up after the show.
Paper Girls is a Brian K. Vaughan series, and it is amazing.
There are... I'll say this now, and this is my own...
By the way, the cool thing about Image, I should note, too, is it's something you were talking about, that they create these new characters, new universes, and there's no back stuff. Like, Monstrous is 3 trades old. You know, Paper Girls is on volume 5. It takes nothing to go and read them. Even, well, I was about to say even Walking Dead, but no, they're up to 29 or 30 now. Whoops. That's a lot at this point. But it's not like X-Men. You know, how many X-Men trades are there?
Yeah, exactly.
And even then, there's some issues that aren't in print anymore. You can't even get them in trade. So, you know, it's kind of nice that there's this company that is really kind of focused on the trades, because it gives younger readers or people who haven't been reading comics for 40 years or whatever the chance to see everything. Right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's one of those things where, like, what I was going to say was about Paper Girls was that I would have to look it up and make sure. There are comic ideas and there are comic books that I love the idea for, but for me, unless they're in color, I probably will never read them. And I know that's... No, I know it is. I'm looking at it now. I know that it is because I'm looking at it right now. What I'm saying is, though, there have been several series over the time that I've been doing this podcast that I'm like, I can't. I just can't.
Well, as much as I hate to say it, I've always maintained that art's very subjective, and I really try to... I give everything a chance, and I really encourage people to. But having said that, some of the art and some of the writing has not aged well in some of the older stuff.
No, yeah.
So I think that's also sort of a barrier to a lot of people who want to read that old stuff. You know, we're talking about it before this went on. I'm going to be recording on Sunday a podcast about the last 13 minutes. Wow.
If they could fit the last 13 years into 13 minutes.
Yeah, about the last 13 years of the Transformers universe in IDW. And it's interesting to just think that sounds like a lot, but really, I mean, if it's tiny compared to everything else, you know, Superman's got decades on that. The X-Men, Spider-Man, everybody from Black Panther to pretty much everybody that's got a movie at this point has many more years than that and many more issues. So it's kind of nice to have these one-shots, these shorter things, and to have this pocket stuff. Yeah. To have companies like Image. One of the things I like about Image and DC Vertigo, although DC Vertigo more in their heyday versus what they've been relaunched as. Anyway, but they take chances on weird stories. Like the concept of Paper Girls is a bunch of young girls who deliver papers end up traveling through time and involved in a multi-yeared war between groups, and it is complex, it's funny, it's kind of got everything, and part of it is because I honestly think Vaughn is probably the best writer going right now. You look at his output, he doesn't have anything bad. It's all been very, very good. And there's a bunch of guys like that, and there's some of them that do work in the superhero companies, but I do think there's something to be said for having a chance to kind of recharge your idea juice or whatever you want to call it, you know.
Yeah, you take Kyle Higgins. You know, he did Batman for the longest time for a while. He did Nightwing for the longest time in the New 52. He goes over to Image and does this creator-owned series called Cowl. He does another creator-owned series called Hadrian's Wall. Absolutely love what he does. You look at Scotty Young doing I Hate Fairyland.
About to bring him up. And Young's done a ton of work for Marvel and other companies.
Yep.
It's just, it's got to be nice for him to be able to go off and do something else.
Yeah. I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's Jeff Lemire that does Descender over at Image. I think I checked out the first issue of that and I was hooked, but I never ever went back to it.
And then to use somebody else that you're aware of, though, somebody like Dan Jurgens, I don't have a clue how he just consistently and constantly writes the superhero stuff without much of a break.
That man is amazing.
Yeah, and he jumps around, and I think it's great for people that can do that, but I don't think there's a lot of them. I think it's good for guys like Jason Aaron, who writes a ridiculous amount of the Marvel stuff, to be able to go and do The Goddamn or Southern Bastards or some of his other indie titles. So it's nice that there's room for all this, is what I'm getting at, and that comics are... We're never going to see a 1 million seller like X-Men in the 90s or some of the other comics like Spawn that did crazy numbers for a period of time. We're not going to see that kind of domination or those kind of sales anymore. But there definitely feels like there's enough room now. We're just going to keep seeing comics, and it's nice to see the indie stuff. It's a lot like video games. The indies are kind of stepping up where the AAA publishers are not willing to go. Like, they don't take as many chances, and that's fine. I don't blame Disney / Marvel / Warner / DC.
This is a topic for another day, but what the hell does EA even do anymore? EA Games, EA Sports, whatever the hell.
They cancel games.
Yeah, that's what they do.
They cancel titles, and they release ones with lots of microtransactions. This was it's weird. It was a good year to further the comparison, it was a good year in a lot of respects for AAA gaming. But it was a real bad year for some companies. EA had a rough year. Bethesda had a nightmarish year. Yet you look at stuff like God of War, and you look at stuff like Spider-Man.
From Sony.
Yeah. So it wasn't that bad. And then comic-wise, same sort of thing. It was a real rough year overall, I think, for Marvel. And some of the stuff was really rough on DC. They sold well, particularly the wedding of Batman and Catwoman. But they received a lot of flack over the year as well. And, and Marvel certainly took a beating, too. And then with Marvel, you look at the other side, they did, Infinity War made a few dollars.
It made a few billion dollars.
They made a few bucks there. So it hasn't been that bad a year to be Marvel.
No.
So, it's just, there's good and bad right now. And I still think overall the industry's in a really good place because the amount of independent content and the amount of creator-controlled content is got to be at an all-time high. And it's just fun. There's a lot of different stuff. There's everything from a Street Fighter versus G.I. Joe series being made to, like, basically right now, you imagine it or you have something you like, there's probably a comic about it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And that's a pretty neat time to be in. Like, people complain about, and you can complain all you want about comics and where they're at with certain things, but if you actually be quiet and start reading something, you'll find something you like. Like, there's a ridiculous amount of content, and there's a ridiculous amount of really good content. When the Eisners are inevitably announced for last year, if they haven't been already. I really wish I'd paid more attention before I started this sentence, but whatever. When they're announced, there's a ridiculous amount of books that I can think of off the top of my head that would definitely be deserving of winning. Oh, thank God, it's July 20th. Oh, for the next group. Oh, good. There we go.
Speaking of 20th, IDW is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, and they're releasing a series called IDW 2020. Year-long 20th anniversary celebration, an all-new weekly event giving a glimpse of your favorite characters 20 years into the future or past. What made them into the heroes you love, and what twists does the future hold? Meet the Turtles of tomorrow. In this adventure set 20 years in the future, the Utrom Civil War rages across the Earth when news backup of the Technodrome threatens hundreds of millions of innocent lives. So yeah, the Turtles is the first one. They're going to have a My Little Pony one, Ghostbusters, Gem, and Star Trek.
Conspicuously missing is Transformers, which has been one of their biggest series forever, but we know why. No, I know, I'm just saying.
It's probably because of the whole
end of the
relaunch.
Universe.
Yeah.
No,
thing. I know. Which you'd think that it would be included because it would be an interesting... Again, these are all weekly one-shots that they're doing. So, like you've already said in this episode, why not throw a one-shot in there kind of a thing?
Because especially for a new series, though, you'd feel... So, stay tuned to the podcast on Sunday for stuff about this. IDW did it with their earlier universe, though. They did the flash-forward kind of stuff. And it was a problem because it made new... Oh, excuse me. Jeez. Curse this new mic so they can pick up when I burp or whatever. Maybe I'll stop drinking while I podcast.
Yeah, you should probably do that.
Whatever. You don't pay me to be professional. No, so...
Nobody pays me to be professional, but I still am.
Anyway.
On air, anyway.
But no, one of the things they did was, when they did the flash forwards for Transformers, it made the new writers end up feeling like they had to kind of be beholden to that canon, and it created a lot of problems. Until they just decided, like, yeah, screw it, it just didn't happen. Like, Ironhide died, and oh shit, Ironhide might have not been okay later on in the series, so his vision can't come true. Just occurred to me, you might have not read. Anyway.
Yeah, it's okay. But yeah, comics is still a mainstay. You're still going to have comic shops. You're still going to have the digital stuff. We're still going to be going strong here at the show. Like Ryan has been alluding to, there's going to be an in-depth IDW Transformers conversation next week. It'll air next week on the show.
Whoa. You think I'm going to edit it by then? Poof. Actually, it's a good point.
That's my job, you idiot!
No, just don't bother editing it. I'm just going to be perfect for the whole thing. I won't get off topic. It'll be great. Not going to drink and burp into the microphone.
All right. Where can the people find your drunk ass online,
At
sir?
Nightbeat I can't drink alcohol. At Nightbeat on Twitter.
I am at TFG and Mike on Twitter. You can follow at The Pullbag and at Geekcast Radio on Twitter as well. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Geekcast Radio Network, and The Pullbag as well. Head on over to the brand new GeekCastRadio.com. Check out the new site designed by Steve Megatron. And check out all the new features we've got and everything else. Next week, I'm hoping it's going to be Joe Reed and myself reviewing TMNT Ghostbusters 2 from IDW. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not next week. Plus, we'll have Ryan's special episode on...
A very special episode.
Okay, Hef, calm down.
What?
Canadian Hugh Hefner. Anyway, make your great escape into comics, and we will catch you next time here inside the Pull Bag.
Together again.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's first comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate and leave a review for the show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Become a fan of us on Facebook, facebook.com/thepullbag. Send us an email, feedback@geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @thepullbag and @geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.